Well, Andy, as I was watching the film, it struck me just a year ago this week, a good friend of mine lost his son who battled Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, for 5.5 years. He died at the age of 47. He was a surfer, and he spent a lot of his time hiking on Mount Tamalpais here in Marin County. Now, I have not found the moment to talk to my friend John about his son and say, did you ever explore Lyme disease? But you point out in the film that forensic studies show that many people who die of Parkinson's, of MS, of Lou Gehrig's disease, do test positive as carriers of Lyme disease.
Right. We have one researcher in the film who did a study on brains of 10 individuals who died from Alzheimer's disease, and these were brains from the Harvard University Brain Bank. And he found evidence on a DNA level of the microorganism that causes Lyme disease in 7 out of 10 of those brains. And that's pretty outstanding. It doesn't necessarily mean that Lyme disease caused the Alzheimer's, but it does. But anybody, any honest researcher, I think would open their eyes and their ears and say, you know what, we've got to look at this. But that's not happening.
Yeah.
And so...
And that's reminiscent of the denial of tobacco executives about a causal link between tobacco use and cancer.
Yeah, well, Jordan often uses that example, that we're in the same place we are with the issue of Lyme disease as we were with tobacco use many years ago, that people did not believe it, that there was a sort of blanket denial and obfuscation from commercial interests. So I do think we are in a similar place, and I think we're headed in the direction of truth. I think the truth is going to come out, and I'm not saying that we hold the truth, because there's so much that's unknown about this illness.
But you're openly and honestly searching for it.
Exactly.
Wherever it may lie.
And we're saying that there are connections that can't be ignored.
Yeah. Now, I just diverted you. I had asked you about the people who have symptoms but don't have any recollection of being in the woods or being bitten by a tick.
Right. Well, this is another controversial area, is transmission. And the orthodoxy is that Lyme disease is transmitted only by the bite of an infected deer tick. There have been studies that have shown that it's actually called a spirochete, which is a kind of bacteria that it's spiral shaped, and it's very similar to the microorganism that causes syphilis. It can go into any part of the body. It passes through the blood-brain barrier, goes into tissue. It doesn't stay in the bloodstream, so it's very hard to isolate. And interestingly, it's also very similar to syphilis, with multi-system, multi-symptom aspects of it, leading to dementia, which is something else which is very interesting to look at. So, getting back to your question about transmission, we know that syphilis was transmitted sexually. There's question whether Lyme disease is transmitted sexually. I think anecdotally, from what I've seen and heard, I think that's probably the case, that it is transmitted sexually. But there's been no definitive studies, and some people would say that we're irresponsible for even speaking that. But it seems to be true based on the research we've done. It's also passed from mother to child in utero. So maternal fetal transmission and transplacental transmission is something that's been shown to be true. That's also disputed within the medical orthodoxy. But that also seems to be true. So mothers are passing this to their kids. Mothers may not even know that they're sick, and they're passing it on to their children. Their children go on to have cognitive problems, neurodegenerative problems, motor neuron problems. Many children who are diagnosed with autism are later found to be infected with the Lyme bacteria, and they get treated for Lyme and they get better. So that's why I did not want to make this film tick-centric. I didn't want it to make it about the tick. We got to move away from that paradigm. So often when there's a report about Lyme disease, and there usually is once a year, tick time, there's a picture of a tick, and we just think, oh, Lyme disease equals tick. That doesn't affect me. I don't go out in the woods. I live in the city. That was a conscious choice in the film to say, no, it's not just about ticks.
Talking with Andy Abrahams-Wilson here on the Peter B. Collins Show. Under Our Skin is the name of the documentary. UnderOurSkin.com is where you can get more information. And here's another excerpt from the film that we'll discuss here in just a moment.
In a way, it's like the perfect storm of diseases because of the timing of a couple different events in the history of medicine. 1980, the United States said it was okay for government institutions and universities to patent and profit from live organisms. So the Lyme disease organism was discovered in 1981, and all of a sudden there was the equivalent of an Oklahoma land grab, people looking under their microscopes, patenting pieces of the organism. So the people that are credited for being the Lyme disease experts no longer shared information about a new, really dangerous pathogen. They hoarded the information because they wanted to protect future profits.
You have professors, especially in the biosciences, are trying to take their discoveries, often made on the federal nickel, and take them private. They patent them, they start firms. What's commercializable is driving the research agenda in too many cases, not what's medically necessary and what's medically useful.
Now, Andy, I just feel left out. Now, just on a lighter note, we'll get to the serious part in a second, but I missed the savings and loan bailouts of the 80s, missed the dot-com boom of the 90s. Some friends and I were going to buy a bank just before the Bush bailouts were announced, didn't get around to it. But this is insidious. How do you own a piece of a disease? I don't quite understand that.
It's not a piece of a disease, a piece of a microorganism.
Mm-hmm.
So a piece of a bacterium, basically.
Isn't that properly in the public domain?
It's pretty outrageous. I mean, when I found that out, I was floored, just as you are. But that is so, and this is what happened during the Reagan years. It was part of the whole deregulation, getting government out of our lives. Also, checks and balances, oversight, all of this started to go away around then. And ironically, I think, as we're talking, the idea of getting government out of our lives and deregulation, it's what this allowed was government to actually share in profits. So it wasn't just about the patenting of live organisms and parts of live organisms, but it was also about the government joining forces with Big Pharma and universities doing the same. And you have to look at that askew. There's something wrong with that. These are the institutions that are supposed to be protecting us and are supposed to be working towards the public interest. And what appears to have happened is that it created an atmosphere of competition and secrecy.
Mm-hmm.
And like Chris says in the film, that we're seeing the results 30 years later. Mm-hmm. And this really was the probably one of the first big discoveries after these series of cases.